From 31 Days of Halloween Prompt Challenge by Dragongoddess13. Day 10. Summary. Sirimione, grabbing at the same time for the last copy of a scary movie. Hermione had had an awful day. And awful was the only word she could use to describe it, because her entire brain was absolutely fried at this point. Between the utter incompetence she was surrounded by at work, dispositions were supposed to be the easy part of the legal process, and personal drama that would not stop invading her every aspect of her life. Seriously, they were broken up, stopped sending her flowers and chocolates, and worst of all, singing telegrams. She was thoroughly over all of it. All she wanted to do at this point was to pick up a copy of her favorite scary movie, a crap ton of junk food, a gallon of wine or two, and go home to cuddle her cat while she pretended the world didn't exist for the next 3 days. That, of course, was apparently not in the cards for her. Had she not been so emotionally drawn out, she might have noticed how cute he was. Had she not been so angry, she may have been a little more accommodating upon first interaction. Had she been thinking clearly, she wouldn't have made a colossal ass of herself. Sirius was only interested in one thing that day. The pretty little brunette he'd noticed around town for the last 6 months. She was new, he was sure. This little village was small, not much to it. Small town businesses down Main Street, a few family-owned restaurants, and a small population of residents. Everyone pretty much knew everyone, or at least of everyone else, but he knew very little about her. She was a professional, he knew that much, commuted into the city every day for work. She lived in one of the flats just off the main road through town, but he didn't know which one. She was very closed off. She spoke only to be polite, which she very much was. She avoided excessive conversation with most people. Sirius had seen the young woman that evening heading into the video rental store and finally decided that it was time to talk to her. The only problem was, as soon as he was within range, his usually suave instinct failed him and he found himself floundering. His only instinct as he approached her was to look away, seizing the first thing he saw to occupy his attention. Unfortunately, that thing was the same thing she was there for. The last copy of a horror movie he'd never seen, and like most horror movies, would probably hate. Seriously? She huffed under her breath, and for a moment he thought he'd completely messed up. Look, I don't mean to be rude, she began, drawing his attention back to her, but this is not happening today. She continued tugging the DVD case out of his hand, dropping it into her handbasket once she was successful. Maybe if she hadn't taken him by surprise, maybe if he wasn't such a confrontational person, he wouldn't have spoken before he thought. Now hold on a moment, why do you get it? He cringed inwardly, screaming at himself to just let her have the movie. He didn't even like horror movies. Because I had a truly awful day. All I want in life at this moment in time is to go home, watch one of my favorite movies, and gorge myself on takeout and junk food, she told him, none too gently. Sirius looked skeptical. And a slasher flick is going to make you feel better. If it were December, we'd be arguing over a copy of White Christmas, but it's not December, it's October. Fair enough, he conceded. But that doesn't really solve anything. How do you know I'm not having a bad day too? Now it was her turn to look skeptical. Are you? He shrugged, floundering a bit. Well, no, but still. Why do you get the movie just because you're having a bad day? Hermione sighed harshly. I think there's only one way to handle this, Sirius went on. We'll have to watch it together. Hermione froze. He couldn't be serious. He looked very serious. Are you serious? She asked. He grinned. Yes, actually. He offered his hand. Sirius Black. She stared at him for a moment before accepting. Hermione Granger. From Shakespeare? He questioned, surprisingly enough, excitedly. Hermione tried not to judge people by their appearances, but even she had to admit that the man standing before her in ripped black jeans, an Aerosmith t-shirt, and black biker boots did not seem like a fan of Shakespeare. She nodded. That's awesome, he grinned. Thank you. She looked down before he could catch her blush. She caught sight of the DVD case, laying on top of the candy and packs of popcorn in her handbasket. She sighed. I suppose it could only be fair, she conceded. Sirius smiled triumphantly. 2 years later, as she walked down the aisle to meet him, he would remember that night. James would mention it in his best man speech as the night Sirius bailed on Guy's night to make a fool of himself in front of the woman of his dreams. Hermione would laugh at the memory of him, practically sinking into the sofa at first scream. Thank you for listening to 31 Days of Halloween Prom Challenge by Dragon Goddess Day 10. Stay tuned for